All right. I actually was thinking about that a bit more needs to be explained about for really even history sense. And for then I thought about it, I'm like, wait, no, far younger people than me wouldn't really know much about these subjects and how, like, so why is, Joe Biden is supporting, fundamentally just saying that tacitly, not actively supporting Israel's efforts in Gaza against Hamas, which almost everybody in the world is saying you're just kind of just flattening this place that all these people live. Now, the very concept, more and more people are having to go back and forth on these things. Like, this wasn't an open air prison. What are you talking about? And there's farmland in there, and there are, but the problem is that there is no real industry there. They're kind of living. They're really what they are is they're a welfare state, and let's see. I wonder if I can. Let's see, y'all. This does make sense in the way of, like, being that Hamas is Marxist-Leninist. That this idea that fundamentally you kind of have this area of the world that what people do is they're just sort of paid to be like this wouldn't necessarily, yep, there we go, all right, this wouldn't necessarily offend the morals of Islam. That they're like, no, but you're being charitable to other Muslims. That's how Hamas pulls off, like, weaving Marxist-Leninism in with Islam. And there's the longer tradition of this. This actually goes back to an earlier generation. Before Hamas and before the PLO, a lot of people don't know that with PLO and Arafat was actually one of the proteges of a man named Hassan al-Banna of the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood. And this is when everyone was flirting with fascism. So the idea of a hard collectivist state with absolute rules and authoritarian kind of control over a large section of moral life, of common daily life, and the culture. But as sort of nominal ownership of businesses, you are always kind of paying up the chain. Maybe the most representatives of our representation is done through various forms of syndicates, kind of small collectives that you end up having kind of like all the people in the tea industry have a certain kind of say on a council. All the people, like the Carbonari in Italy, the coal, the Brotherhood of Coal Miners is kind of loosely the way of thinking of it. But they also end up having, they because it's a cultural societal group as well as an industrial one, being therefore a syndicate is what we'd usually refer to them as here in the States. That such a syndicate then owns parts of the industry. They're not just workers in it. And it's, yeah. And so it's just the way, we humans organize. But the moral and ethical thing, okay, so to introduce such a system, like National Socialism was something that was a thing that a small minority of Germans were all about, and they were the intellectual class. They pulled in angry normies and workers, and then really when you look into it, a lot of people who are the misfits of society. That's a part of it that nobody really wants to get into, because that keeps happening in any collectivism. You pull in misfits, people who are inherently angry with society. And so the whole thing with so you end up, all of Germany gets painted with this brush when these were people that were oh my God, this teeny little squirrel. It was so cute. Like a little puffball. Where are you? Oh, no, he's playing with me. He won't let me see him. Oh, he's gone. All right. Cute little puffball. All right. Anyway. I'm a tough guy. That's why I wear tough guy clothes. I have tough guy facial hair. I walk with a scowl because I'm a tough guy. All right. Enjoy the coffee. It's really expensive now, so I should really learn to appreciate it. I already made my own, and I've been up for a while, and so I was like, no, I'm getting another cup while I go and deal with some stuff around town. So you end up having this thing of these various organizations and ways of thinking that were left over, not so much from the earliest 1900s. They kind of formulated then, but it was really the 1920s and 1930s. A lot of this ends up being these kind of like mystical organizations or these fraternal or sororital organizations that, we kind of associate with conspiracy theory, odd fellowship, Freemasonry. Then you get like the various Rosicrucian groups. Groups that were Paul Foster cases kind of stuff, but this also was in Black America too. Even what we call La Raza. It's based on a theory. It's based on a way of thinking from a book. I think it's called like La Raza Cosmica, the cosmic race. And so you end up getting these kind of wild-eyed ideas that you'll even find at various times the adoption of Cabalistic imagery, the adoption of Kabbalah as kind of this, mysticism par excellence. And there is a degree to which that's not exactly wrong, but what this ended up doing was to introduce these ideas, there had to be usually a claim to history. And people just didn't know that much in the 1920s that was precise about certain subjects. About what we now know, say from the Human Genome Project, about how people have spread around in different groups, and especially the complexity of it, how nobody really was able to answer the back. Well, no, Kabbalah isn't a Jewish tradition. I mean, it sort of is, but it's actually a tradition that comes out of the ancient Greek world. And you could find writings of the ancient saints, and that was considered speculative theology. And it eventually died because there was basically just this idea that there wasn't secret words and numbers and hidden codes of stuff in the texts, and that wasn't going to help you any, like trying to find hidden information in the scriptures like that through codes, so that got rejected by the early church within the first, I think, 500 years. There might be more than that, might have gone on further, but I mean, eventually it's what you see with the Renaissance and Ficino. Oh, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name, but the person who came up with this idea that there's these phases that we're going through that are shown in the Bible, and so people have used this to say that we were going to evolve a certain way, or everyone would become their own priest, and all kinds of stuff. Well, so as people started to try to fill in like the holes and stuff like this of the historicity of it, and especially trying to make something that had to be understood as inherently irrational, or actually no, as spiritualists like Kabbalists say, beyond the rational. They say religion has to be meta-rational. And so, without that understanding of that, you could have all these weird ways that historicity gets all messed up. So most people who have followed, say, quote-unquote white supremacy know that there's this sort of school of thought that the ancient Israelites were some kind of white people thing, and so Jesus was white, and I mean, like, that they really are into that. Like, that's a big deal to them. Then you find all the many, to this day, thriving communities of Jesus was black. And no one understands groups like this have their own historicity. They have their own standards for what is proper history. They have their own kind of story that they tell their own members about, and that buttress their argument. Without knowing that, one won't know. And depending on where you live in the United States, this might come across as a totally outlandish and kooky idea to some black people to be like, oh, there's thriving communities of this. But if you know about them, you know. Another group that most people are actually very familiar with, they just don't know they're familiar with the group, is the 5% Nation. They have their own historicity, such as General Monk or the Albinoids. There's all kinds of fascinating things like this. The Rastas have their own historicity. Now, if you're on like the West Coast, like I was born, like the Rastas were like they were far away, like they were in New York, and stuff, and people would just kind of emulate it, but nobody really knew what any of the references were, to, Prince Tafari, or, nobody knew any about it. Really knew it took time because everybody had books. There was no internet. So there's these ideas. So that's why the claims that are made a lot of times about sort of nefarious plots by one group to another. Well, they don't know each other. People don't network like that. That's what makes it preposterous. There wasn't an internet back then. You had to be at home to get the phone call to get them. So it's not as. And then there's a lot of people that they were just normal people. Why would they be bothering other people? And so a lot about this idea of the malevolence of the American against the American, is a little urban. It's not really as normal. It just wasn't normal for people to harm each other over about the last 60, 70 years in the streets, unless you lived someplace where there was just a lot of crime. Normal people didn't suddenly, I can't believe those two are dating. Let's get them. It just, that may be in places that were relatively small, but this just wasn't that normal, and, but it's been played up like that's how Americans behave. Within my own lifetime, I could tell you, I've met people like the person who was the Moroccan Jew, moved with his American wife to Israel, was a rabbi in Israel on a kibbutz, left that because of the infighting between the Moroccans and other groups of Jews on the kibbutz. So he then explains how great America is because people aren't like that. That's in my lifetime, that's what my experience is. Or the kids that you don't know why they're at Catholic school, but they're speaking some language, and it's not Spanish, and you realize, oh, they're Egyptians and Palestinian Catholics. And then you get over, as a kid, and you're getting told these stories about, oh, this is what we eat, this is what we do, this is the, so the TV shows, all of the stuff that everybody was having such a good time hanging out with each other. And then came along the 2010s and the weird introduction a-religious Marxist stuff to the young that seemed to explode and showed up through feminism and then became, oh, all of you people are horribly oppressed. And so a lot of us who, like, we got to see all the fun of the 90s and early 2000s, we were thoroughly confused by this. We weren't getting where kids were getting this idea, where even the early 20-something millennials, we weren't getting where they were getting this stuff. We're like, no. And we were trying to explain a lot of this stuff to them. They didn't want to hear it. They wanted to live in a world that they're constantly absconded by these horrible people who just are afraid of their sexy and their hair or something weird like that. Some real weird make-believe of that people want to believe about some hidden enemy within the ranks of their neighbors. And I'd always thought, I think this comes from zombie movies. But now, and that's its own epistemology. And that they'll have to do anything against the zombies, and you never know when they're infected, they're going to turn on you because of your sexy and your hair, So I started thinking, a lot of people don't know why suddenly blacks and the Muslim, this weird turn, this shift, that's hard as hell. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, you guys don't get it. There's been this weird racial mysticism thing, and a part of the historicity and a part of the epistemology of it is that there's something about Arabia, and black people think Arabia has something to do with black people, and then a lot of black people have this weird idea that Islam is super cool rock and roll for black people and is super African. It's really odd. And in knowing anything about the actual history of Islam and its relationship to Africa. So because of this, and then what I said, like the 5% Nation, and then there's some others, like the Moorish Science Temple, where they all wear fezzes, and they have the flag. I believe their symbol is the flag, the star that you see on the flag of Libya. Let me think. What was the other one? I mean, there's Nation of Islam, and the 5% Nation is like an offshoot of the Nation of Islam. So something that I kind of started to really like, I was like, okay, if you don't know about this racial mysticism stuff, so then beyond that, you get the people who I think a lot of even liberal Jews are aware of because of the memes online, are the Black Hebrew Israelites. So that group, they're their own thing unto themselves. Again, they look at the King James Bible of the version of the Bible, and they come up with their own historicity and epistemology. And so their claim is that black people are the actual Jews of history, and that this is proven by a bunch of lines in various Christian and Jewish scriptures, and that there's been some kind of plot so as to fool people into.
Look at that! They got it with the lightning coming.
And that there's been some method by which to rob history of this fact, because they're really trying to do something to they got to rob the black man of his history, kind of thing. Now, I almost have never found any group of people who have really embraced, say, Yoruba religion, really got into kind of the Brazilian thing, the Brazilian stuff. Because oddly, my lily white cousin was adept in that kind of stuff, dancing every year in the carnival. So I just found that kind of interesting, like that you don't really find these people really into kind of something that is a traceably African religion, I notice. and they really don't think that Christianity and Africa have anything to do with one another. They've no amount of historic research will cause them to understand that relationship. So that's why they've turned on Ashkenazi Jews the way they have, and so profoundly, like that. It's openly saying things on Twitter and all that you're kind of like, holy shit, bro. Based, because people weren't aware. So when you hear of like 5% Nation, that's like Wu-Tang Clan. Like, how people don't know that, I never understood. Like, I mean, Lauryn Hill, the Fugees, they all talked about being 5%ers. I mean, most East Coast rap, that was the basis, the cultural, mystical, race, mystical culture of it was based out of the 5% Nation. You could even say a big part of hip-hop is something that is a mesh of Caribbean music and their traditions and the 5% Nation and their traditions of kind of this idea of teaching the quote-unquote lessons, mathematics, and sciences, as they like to call it. And so this is just why people wanted to believe things. They wanted to believe their ideas about blacks and Islam, and now just a lot of people are finding out that was just never the reality, and it's liberating to find out when one is wrong. I mean, it's freeing. You get to learn something new, and so I just thought I would touch on that because I've gotten this idea that there's people that are maybe a little bewildered by that sudden political shift, and that it's going to very likely cost the Democrats a good section of the Black American vote, that they just will stay home. So, all right, talk to you later.